Welcome to a special virtual edition of the Skeptics track at Dragoncon, where we put the science in science fiction.
Hello and welcome to our virtual live streaming Dragoncon Skeptrack for 2020. I'm Dr. Angie. I've got with us today Claus Larsen, who is joining us from Copenhagen, or from outside of Copenhagen. He is the not president of the Danish Skeptics because they're an autonomous collective and they don't really have presidents. But we're delighted that he could join us today. Hi, Claus.
Hi.
What are you going to talk to us today?
I'm going to talk about conspiracy theories, what, why, and where to.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
Okay. Let's hear it. Good afternoon from Denmark. My name is Claus Larsen, and together with Sten Svanholm, I've researched conspiracy theories for more than a decade now, from a skeptical and scientific point of view. I'll be presenting this lecture on behalf of myself and Sten. We have primarily focused on the many conspiracy theories concerning the terror attack on September 11, 2001. We've investigated about 100 claims, each with their own article. The articles are available in Danish and English and on our website 9/11 Facts. We've also fact sheets, articles with a broader scope, and a collection of all available documentation regarding 9/11. You can find more than 3 terabytes on our site, making it one of the, if not the biggest of its kind in the world, and certainly, we think, best. We have a two-pronged approach. One, we research conspiracy theories and the people who believe in them. We investigate the claims, not to debunk them, but to see if they are true or not. Some of the truths could be true. We apply critical thinking and scientific methodology to the claims. We have an open mind, but not so open that our brains fall out. We also try to find explanations as to why conspiracy theories emerge, who believe them, and why people do it. And we've come up with some interesting findings, and I will present a couple today. We think we know why people become conspiracy theorists, and we've also found effective ways of dealing with conspiracy theorists. 2, we do good old-fashioned public education. We give lectures and workshops about conspiracy theories, and we appear in the media as experts on the subject. Among other things in this presentation, I'll describe the Harwich syndrome, which Sten and I have discovered. Our finding has been published in Chaos. That's the academic journal published by the Department of Religious History at the University of Copenhagen. The article is called The Rhetorics of Conspiracy Theories. The article is not yet translated to English, but you can view our presentation at SciCon 2018 in Las Vegas on our Facebook wall. So, let's delve into the wormhole of conspiracy theories. Every time something big happens, like terror attacks or catastrophes, or conspiracy theories will invariably follow. Conspiracy theories are not just about who shot John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, or Robert Kennedy. Conspiracy theories are also a necessity for other false beliefs. The anti-vaccination movement claims not only that vaccines cause autism, among other things, but also that there's a vast conspiracy of silence from doctors, scientists, and politicians all over the world. UFO believers claim that the CIA and the military are conspiring to hide evidence that aliens from distant star systems are visiting us regularly. The whole field of alternative treatment is based on the conspiracy theory that scientists keep the knowledge from the public, that everything in nature, from mushrooms to exotic berries to poison ivy, can cure every disease known to man. Even the Holocaust, the systematic extermination of European Jews during World War II by the Nazis, is claimed to be a hoax being covered up by historians, the media, and the Jews in particular. So if we can find methods to counter conspiracy theories, we're not just finding false beliefs about Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, and reptilians ruling planet Earth, we will also have ways to counter a lot of other types of false beliefs. But in order to do so, we must understand a crucial difference between the two types of superstition or false belief, the small superstition and the big superstition. We could also call them the half-hearted belief and the full-blown belief. The difference lies in the limits of the belief. There might be something to it, as opposed to there is. But what makes a person go from half-hearted belief to full-blown belief? Why do you cross the line? And we think we have an answer to that when it comes to conspiracy theorists. More about that later. We've also developed a method to deal with the various aspects of conspiracy theories, the W3 method. It consists of 3 steps, hence the name: what, why, and where to. What are conspiracy theories? Why do people believe in them? And what do we do about them? We cannot begin to fight false beliefs until we understand what those false beliefs are. But we also need to understand why people believe falsehoods before we can do anything about them. We don't start out with the goal of ridiculing conspiracy theorists or assuming from the beginning that their claims are false. Steen and I have decided to take the conspiracy theorists seriously, very seriously. They may be right, even partly, and if they are, that needs to be acknowledged. However, if they are wrong, that is equally important for people to know. First, we look at the claim itself. How is the claim worded? Who makes the claim? What's the background story? Then we seek out the facts. We've also found great value in pointing out the logical flaws in conspiracy thinking. Conspiracy theorists want to present not just an evidence-based case, but also one based on logic and rationality. And we've found that conspiracy theories always contain some logical flaws with some ridiculous consequences if the theories were true. Only then do we conclude whether the conspiracy theory is true or not. We make sure to acknowledge if there is a grain of truth to it, which there often is, but also where exactly the thinking goes wrong, so they reach the wrong conclusion. Let's take a quick look at some of the other conspiracy theories out there to get a grasp of what we are dealing with here. First, some definitions. A conspiracy is when 2 or more people get together in secrecy to do something illegal, immoral, and/or harmful. A conspiracy theory is a conspiracy that isn't true. In other words, there's evidence of a conspiracy, there's no evidence of a conspiracy theory. Let's look at some examples of conspiracy theories. Possibly the most widespread conspiracy theory is about the Holocaust being a hoax, cooked up by Jews to whip up support for the creation and existence of the Jewish state Israel. Another popular one is that the assassination of John F. Kennedy was really a plot by the CIA, the mafia, the US military, and a lot of other bad people. Area 51 is an example of a conspiracy theory with a grain of truth in it. There is actually one such secret base where the US military has been testing new advanced airplanes. But the conspiracy theorists claim that the spaceship from another planet crashed at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and that spaceship is now being stored on the base along with the bodies of the little green men that were on board. The moon landings from 1969 to 1972 are also claimed to be one big hoax. What we saw on our television sets was supposedly footage shot in a Hollywood studio by none other than Stanley Kubrick. And the moon hoax is another example of a conspiracy theory with a grain of truth in it. The moon actually exists. A relatively new conspiracy theory is chemtrails. the contrails that we see in the sky from passenger planes flying over our heads are not just vapors from the engines. No, say the conspiracy theorists, chemicals have been added to the jet fuel, chemicals that are slowly drifting down on everyone, turning us into mindless drones, so that the evil conspirators can take over the world. Conspiracy theories can also be very local. In 2010, a series of shark attacks happened at the Egyptian holiday resort at Sharm el-Sheikh. One tourist was killed and several others were injured. Quickly, conspiracy theories emerged that the Israeli Secret Service, Mossad, had equipped the sharks with GPS, so the sharks were made to attack tourists and thus hurt the important Egyptian tourist economy. Another conspiracy theory that has a grain of truth in it is HAARP. HAARP, it stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is a scientific site in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. No, say the conspiracy theorists. Thank you. Next slide, please. There you go. Thank you. Whoops. No, say the conspiracy. HAARP is really a death ray that triggers natural disasters like the tsunami in Southeast Asia in 2004 and the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. And then we have the reptilians. The reptilians supposedly are a race of creatures from outer space that came to Earth thousands of years ago, breeding with humans to create a master race that has taken control of this planet. Some reptilians that have been identified are George W. Bush and Queen Elizabeth II. You might think that they don't look like reptilians, but that's just a clever ruse. You see, reptilians are shapeshifters. When not in their human form, they shift back to their reptilian form, usually on their home base, the moon. Only that's no moon, that's the mothership. Lady Gaga has even seen Prince Charles shapeshift into a reptilian. I am not saying that Prince Charles is a reptilian, but that's just a little joke. Yes, there is great comedic value in conspiracy theories. But it stops being funny when Jews are constantly being thrown into the mix. Mm-hmm. Historically, Jews have been blamed for all kinds of diseases, wars, and catastrophes without any shred of evidence. Even today, we see Jews being blamed for things like the terror attack on September 11, 2001. Most of the time, Jews are substituted with Israelis or Zionists, but make no mistake, it's the old hatred of Jews that rears its ugly head, just under a new name. All these conspiracy theories lead inevitably to the mother of all conspiracy theories, the New World Order. The New World Order is supposedly a secret group of people and reptilians who work behind the scenes to control the world and everyone in it. Whenever something bad happens, be it man-made or a natural disaster, it's really caused by the New World Order. This is an overview of some of the most important people and organizations that are claimed to be controlled by the New World Order. The CIA, the FBI, and the United Nations are some of the more obvious on the list. We also find the gays, the media, and McDonald's. And everywhere we find the Jews. Now that we know what conspiracy theories are, we can begin to look at why people believe in them. It's only in the past 15, 20 years that psychologists have studied conspiracy theories in earnest. It's a relatively new field, but we can already begin to see some results. Sten and I also try to come up with some explanations of our own. We are not saying that we have the answer to everything. We do, however, think that we have found a couple of things that may add to the whole picture. The first thing we must realize is that conspiracy theorists are not the geeks living in their parents' basement. Well, not all of them are. Mm-hmm. It actually turns out that conspiracy theorists come from every corner of society. There's no clear evidence that points to men being more conspiracy-minded than women, that one ethnic group sticks out, or surprisingly, nor does the level of education determine whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not. Mm-hmm. Everyone can become a conspiracy theorist, which means that we are all in danger of becoming one. It's difficult to determine exactly how many conspiracy theorists there are, but polls point to up to half the population believing in at least one theory. They're usually existing in rather isolated pockets of belief, but some manage to become more mainstream by getting enough members to go above the radar. However, even the relatively known movement as the Truth Movement, whose members believe that 9/11 was an inside job, have only gotten few supporters among the general population. In Denmark, the number of active truthers has not exceeded 1,000 people, with the current number being around 150. On the other hand, the current pandemic and implementation of the 5G network have caused a surge of conspiracy theorists. Only a week ago, Copenhagen saw a demonstration of about 1,500 people consisting of corona hoaxers, truthers, and believers in QAnon. 5G will melt our brains, and curiously enough, Christians as well. However, their influence on public discourse is currently very limited, bordering on the non-existent. No political party represented in the Danish parliament promote conspiracy theories, nor does any major media outlet. You could therefore describe conspiracy theorists, at least in Denmark, as micro-influencers. In this lecture, time is restricted, so if we are to boil it down to one psychological factor, conspiracy theorists experience illusory pattern recognition. Conspiracy theorists see pattern where there are no patterns. Today, let us focus on 7 of the many psychological explanations as to why people are conspiracy theorists. One of the most obvious is confirmation bias. We are all prone to confirmation bias, where we select, consciously or not, the explanations that best fit our worldviews. This example of confirmation bias in conspiracy theories is taken from the Truth Movement. They point to these bursts of dust from one of the collapsing towers in New York and claim that the bursts are evidence of a controlled demolition. As evidence, they point to a real demolition. Look, here are some of the same so-called squibs. That also explains the reports of explosions. Ergo, the Twin Towers were demolished by explosives. What the conspiracy theories don't see are the massive clouds of dust and debris above the squibs. If the small ones explain the explosions, how come the dust clouds above are not evidenced by much, much larger explosions? We see what we want to see. A fascinating psychological factor is the backfire effect. When presented with contrary evidence, the conspiracy theorist doubles down and becomes even more convinced that he's right, as the evidence that he's not pile up. On our site, 9/11 Fast Decay, we have more than 40,000 pages of reports and studies, 130,000 photographs, almost 800 hours of video, and more than 3,000 hours of audio. But when we point to all this, the conspiracy theories simply brush it aside as evidence of a cover-up. The more evidence they are shown, the more they double down. Another psychological factor is original sin. If someone in your family did something wrong at some point in the past, you yourself are under suspicion for what is going wrong today. Maybe that's why the Truth Movement has made a list of 10,000 people who will be arrested in the near future by the movement. So it isn't just Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Dick Cheney the conspiracy theorists are gunning for, but also members of their families. That means Chelsea Clinton, Jenna Bush, and Mary Cheney. Your ancestry, your blood makes you guilty. This study from 2012 by Stephen Lewandowski, an Australian psychologist, describes the way conspiracy theorists come to believe more than one conspiracy theory. In the real world, connections between people, organizations, and events can only be established by evidence. In conspiracy land, everything is connected. If the CIA is covering up the aliens of Roswell, the CIA must also be behind chemtrails. If Queen Elizabeth ordered the Secret Service to kill Princess Diana, the Queen is also a reptilian from outer space. Mm-hmm. To conspiracy theorists, this makes perfect sense. The research by Lewandowski is exemplified in polls about conspiracy beliefs. We find that the combined percentages in favor of various conspiracy theories go way above 100. If people believe in one conspiracy theory, they will likely also believe in more. Your first conspiracy theory will not be your last. Mm-hmm. Leon Festinger, the noted American psychologist, came up with a theory of cognitive dissonance. That's the uncomfortable feeling you have when you hold two different conflicting notions at the same time. One of the basic tenets of 9/11 conspiracy theories is that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were not behind the attack. However, our own fieldwork has found that some conspiracy theories are simultaneously claiming that Osama bin Laden was in different ways behind the attack. One example is Bush ignored warnings of an attack. Another is Osama bin Laden's family was flown out of the US. But these claims, some shown here, necessitate that Osama bin Laden was behind the attack. We found that about 10% of the conspiracy theories concerning 9/11 that we have investigated fit this category. But when we point this out to the conspiracy theorists, that they argue that Osama bin Laden was not behind the attack, yet they do their best to implicate him, the conspiracy theorists become very flustered, angry, and sometimes even hostile. Cognitive dissonance hurts. Mm-hmm. In his book, Voodoo Science, physicist and scientific skeptic Robert Park describes what he calls the road from foolishness to fraud, when people go from naive belief to deliberate fraud. An open-minded person will, when presented with evidence that he's wrong, change his views accordingly. A close-minded person will maintain that he's right and ignore or explain away the evidence presented. An example from the truth movement is this claim: there was no debris from a plane found at the Pentagon. The argument is that since there's no evidence of a plane hitting the Pentagon, the plane couldn't have been hijacked by Islamist terrorists, so the official account must be a lie, therefore Bush did it. When we debate conspiracy theorists, we often find that they haven't done any studying whatsoever of the official reports or the published material. They rely entirely on the information they have been fed on conspiracy theory websites, fora, and YouTube in particular. When we show them photos of actual debris from Flight 77, they usually go from foolishness to fraud. They now claim that the debris was deliberately placed there in the moments after the attack. When people cross the line from foolishness to fraud, they also change from truth seekers to peddlers of lies. It's one thing to be ignorant, but once you've been made aware of the facts, you can no longer keep your belief and at the same time argue in good faith. You know that what you're saying is false, and that makes you a liar. Next, the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's when you are so incompetent that you don't understand that you are incompetent. When we start out learning something, we may become way more secure in our knowledge that it is warranted. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Only later do we realize that we are not as sure as we thought we were, and it's only when we've studied for a long time that we end up becoming real experts. Because they are so convinced that they are right, conspiracy theorists never leave the Dunning-Kruger zone. In no time, they become not only experts on any subject related to, say, 9/11, they become more experts than the experts themselves, especially those experts they disagree with. And all they have to do is Google. This concludes this quick tour of the psychology behind the conspiracy theories. I must stress that this is by no means a comprehensive explanation, but only a broad introduction to the existing research. If you want to dig deeper, you can find an ever-growing list of studies on our site. If you know of relevant research that we haven't listed, please let us know. As I mentioned, Sten and I have made our own small contribution to the body of research, and we think that we know why people go from the small superstition to the big superstition, at least when it comes to conspiracy theories. Everyone experiences loss of trust and subsequent loss of control to various degrees. When life offers the proverbial lemons, such as divorces, sackings, financial losses, lost court cases, or rejected applications, there are different ways to deal with it in order to regain control. One reaction is to learn the lesson and move on. Failure and misfortune are parts of life. We learn from our mistakes. Some even say that we only learn from our mistakes. Another reaction is to start blaming external forces. Management consists of incompetence, spouses turned out to be of dubious morals, and the government is a bunch of fools. And from there, it's a relatively small step to start believing that society is controlled, at least in part, by a group of people with sinister motives. However, given that there is no obvious evidence, the evidence of such a conspiracy must be inferred. These mechanisms have been established fairly well in the academic literature. The following will be our findings. We have noticed a marked difference in conspiracy theorists, which we have named the novice conspiracy theorist, or type 1, and the evangelical conspiracy theorist, type 2. The novice conspiracy theorist casts suspicion on selected flaws in society. Bush is blamed for oil wars in the Middle East, vaccines cause autism, and so on. The novice conspiracy theorist will communicate these theories to others, but also acknowledge that the theories exist in separation. One theory is not connected to or dependent on other theories. To the novice, conspiracy theories do not play a dominant role in his life, so he can most likely be reasoned with. The evangelical conspiracy theorist, however, casts suspicion on all flaws in society, real or perceived. The evangelical conspiracy theorist is a preacher, a prophet, one who can hardly talk about anything else. Everything is seen through a conspiracy lens, and everything is connected. Conspiracy theories thus become the defining factor of the conspiracist's worldview and his identity. Not surprisingly, such extremist behavior often results in social exclusion, but this merely strengthens the evangelical conspiracy theorist in his belief. He believes he is telling the truth and is excommunicated for it. Given the social isolation and the conclusion that people who are trying to change his mind will take him away from his truth, there's little hope of changing the views of an evangelical conspiracy theorist. At the very least, it's complicated. But what happens here? Why do some only become novice conspiracy theorists? Most seem to fall in this category, while others, a minority, but nevertheless very influential, become evangelicals. We believe that we've identified this factor, which we've named the Harrit syndrome. Niels Harrit, whom we see at the top, is a Danish musician and professor emeritus in chemistry at the University of Copenhagen, and regarded by some to be Denmark's leading conspiracy theorist. His claim to fame is publishing a paper claiming the existence of so-called nanothermite in the dust from the World Trade Center. This substance was allegedly used to bring down the World Trade Center 1 and 2, and in particular, World Trade Center 7. Niels Harrit became what we consider an evangelical conspiracy theorist in 2006, when he received 3 DVDs from an anonymous benefactor. On one of the DVDs, a clip was shown of the World Trade Center 7 collapsing, and he describes it as a life-changing event. To quote him, "So when you see a building collapse in 6.5 seconds, and you are a scientist. You think, what? And then you have to watch again. So I pressed the button 10 times and my jaw dropped more and more. Since that day, I have not had a day off. Niels Harrit has since given close to 400 lectures across the world and appeared on various television and radio stations. For the Harrit syndrome to occur, two events must happen in succession. One, the individual must experience a social and mental conditioning of increasing loss of trust in personal and systemic relations with a subsequent loss of control. You can also lose trust in those that govern you. For instance, when your government goes to war on grounds which you feel are unjust. Politics can be a real trust killer. Loss of trust is followed by loss of control. You feel increasingly that you no longer are in control of your life, and or society as such is going to hell. We call this preconditioning. 2, the individual must have an experience of such magnitude and influence that only the term revelation covers it. It's important to stress that this revelation can happen to both people who are already novice conspiracy theorists and those who are not yet conspiracy theorists, shall we say normal. You don't need to be a novice conspiracy theorist first, but you do need to be preconditioned. To trigger this revelation, a messenger is required. People do not seem to go from normal or novice to evangelical conspiracy theorists on their own. There is always a carrier of illumination, an outside source. Once experienced, the transformation is rapid, if not instantaneous. In one blinding moment, everything becomes clear. Not only are the everyday problems caused by a secret group, everything in society throughout history has been one long connected strings of conspiracies dedicated to achieving power over everything for all time. You have now seen the light. You know, you just know. We have not come across a single evangelical conspiracy theorist who haven't had a revelation of some sort. We call it a revelation because there are clear religious connotations. The experience is comparable to the illumination of religious saints by angels acting as harbingers. The evangelical conspiracy theorists are clearly seeing themselves as a form of missionaries, even prophets and gurus. They describe themselves as oracles and being awoke, scolding non-believers to wake up sheeple and themselves having a life-altering experience. This carrier or messenger can take the form of a video, a lecture, a TV show, or the like, and is usually recommended by an evangelical conspiracy theorist. The delivery is always the same, something like, watch this video on YouTube, then you'll understand everything. Come to the lecture with me, Niels Harrit is great. Here, read this book, it reveals the truth. Niels Harrit himself describes it this way. 9/11 is the key to understanding it all. Once you understand his lecture, you are well on the way to a high understanding of the world, especially what is wrong with it. This enables the evangelical conspiracy theorist to begin putting together a vision of who are connected to whom and why. And that is why you end up with something like this. To us sheeple, this is chaotic and incomprehensible, but to the woke ones, this is a true description of the world. Type 1 conspiracy theorists make up a considerable part of the population, but there's little evidence that the number of type 2 conspiracy theorists is very high. However, while type 1 conspiracy theorists have little influence on public discourse, type 2 conspiracy theorists have much greater influence, relatively speaking, since they are the prime instigators of which conspiracy theories should be disseminated. Type 1 conspiracy theories appear rather innocuous and innocent, if someone noisy and annoying. It's still possible to have a rational discussion with them, and they are somewhat open to being wrong. Type 2 conspiracy theorists have a far more aggressive and transboundary behavior. These differences are comparable to religious believers, where some have a moderate approach, while others, a much smaller group, are fundamentalist and extremist. The distinction between type 1 and type 2 conspiracy theorists could help us to a much better understanding of what to choose as solutions when we fight the spreading of the theories. What works for type 1 may not work for type 2, and vice versa. Type 1 conspiracy theorists can be reasoned with by educating them and using sensible, suitable logical arguments. Type 2 conspiracy theorists may be reached since they, much to our surprise, seem to copy good behavior. If we talk politely to them and listen to them, they scale back their verbal aggressions. But for both groups, it will require a lengthy, patient, and tolerant effort. However, this does not guarantee that conspiracy theorists of either type will stop believing. That is a much harder task. There are no quick fixes to the problem of conspiracy theories. So before we can even begin to change the situation, we need to understand not only what conspiracy theorists believe in, but also why they believe in it. We think that we have found a small but crucial part of the puzzle. The existing literature explains why a person becomes a novice conspiracy theorist. The Harriet syndrome explains why a person becomes an evangelical conspiracy theorist. But something else happens too. As time goes on, you lose trust and you lose control along with it. When you have your revelation, you feel that you regain at least some of the control, but your trust plummets. If you think that they are out to get you, that they are working against society, you have even less reason to trust anybody, because you don't know who they all are. They could be the person sitting next to you. Not only do you lose all trust, a third factor is also at play: fear. As you lose trust and control, you also become more fearful. When you have your revelation, you realize that they are responsible for everything, but you can only put a name to the conspirators in a few cases. The rest are unknown. Them. So your fear skyrockets. You may feel that you regain some control when you become a conspiracy theorist, but it comes at a terrible cost. You lose all trust while you become more fearful than ever before. And this is why conspiracy theories are so dangerous, especially when they become widespread. They erode the necessary trust in democracy and society and make people afraid of their own shadows. And that makes them very easy to manipulate. The one who can gain power by pointing to conspiracy theories can easily manipulate those who are the most afraid. We live in interesting times. We now have a pretty good idea of what conspiracy theories are and why people believe in them. The third step in our model is, where do we go from here? What do we do and how? And Sten and I have used a variety of methods. One of those is conversation, one-on-one, online, and informal debates. We've discovered that conspiracy theorists are often starved for contact with non-conspiracy theorists, such as Sten and myself. So we talk to them. But why have a dialogue with conspiracy theorists? If most aren't going to change their minds anyway, why bother? Well, first, it gives us an insight into the way they're thinking. Clearly, they are seeing the world in a vastly different way than the rest of us. That insight in itself has great value. Most obvious is that we show that they are not going to be ignored, a common complaint from them. They crave attention, and if they don't get it, they claim to be oppressed. By paying attention to them, we take the wind out of that claim of oppression. As counterproductive as it may seem, there's real value in not shutting extremists down as long as they don't do anything illegal. Second, given that the study of conspiracy theories is relatively uncharted territory, documenting what happens also has great value. And third, we find that conspiracy theories are a threat to democracy. If a significant part of the population has so little trust in the system and in the elected politicians in particular, the road to tyranny is a real possibility. If democracy is merely thought of as a cloak for a hidden power elite, people will turn to the strong leader who can ferret out the enemy or drain the swamp. All in all, we seek to break the chain of conspiracy thinking. If we can explain how people become conspiracy theorists, if we can explain what faulty thinking is and how to avoid the pitfalls, if we can explain why some sources are more credible than others, if we can explain why a correct understanding leads to a better understanding, if we can explain why we all need to know our limitations, if we can explain why we need that necessary trust, while still questioning everything without automatically rejecting everything, if we can develop people's bullshit detector, we might prevent some people from becoming conspiracy theorists. And if someone is already a conspiracy theorist, if we can convince him that there is no conspiracy, he cannot continue believing in the conspiracy theory. Before we go to question time, let me stress a point that I've made a couple of times. Conspiracy theories are dangerous. They foster extremist thinking and a disregard for democracy, open inquiry, and a free press. When mapping the methods of the conspiracy theorists, we find that despite the conspiracy theorists themselves claim that they are being censored and they are fighting censorship, some are very quick to kick out anyone who do not share their beliefs. This is not merely a desire to be left alone, especially from us pesky critics. You're not welcome unless you buy into their theories, hook, line, and sinker. You will be called the worst things in the dictionary. These are some of the things Sten and I have been called. We are, among other things, being accused of being paid by the Secret Service, and in particular, being shills for Israel. The truth movement may say they want justice, but some are quick to break the law. Truthers have stolen some of our articles. We took the case to court, which resulted in $9,000 in damages paid to us. In 2010, a journalist from one of the biggest Danish newspapers broke the story that the Danish subgroup of conspiracy theorists, many of them artists, was heavily involved in illegal file sharing of Hollywood movies. And this is a list of some of the movies that the Danish conspiracy theorists had made available. After the story broke, access to the illegal file sharing was closed off to the public. So we don't know if the illegal activities ceased. Movies make up an important part of the material, not just stolen ones. You can buy doomsday visions of police states, dark secrets of the Illuminati, and other sinister scenarios. Some books describe a dystopian reality where civil rights have disappeared and the New World Order is fully and openly in charge. Some conspiracy theorists openly prepare for an apocalyptic future where they hoard guns and prepare to live in the wilderness when Trump, someone will come for their guns. When they are demonstrating, some may send a very violent message of revolts, threats, and burning of flags, in particular the United Nations and the flag of Israel. There is little doubt that there's a lot of frustration, rage, and hatred among some conspiracy theorists. Hatred of Israel and the Jews pop up everywhere. Eric Hofschmidt, an American racist and Jew hater, is one example. His book and video about 9/11 are among the cornerstones of the truth movement and the development of the ideas behind the movement. Everything points to the coming revolution, and it will not be a peaceful revolution. This is Kevin Barrett, another influential voice in the truth movement. He has described what will happen in the future when, not if, the truth movement takes control. Billionaires will have their fortunes confiscated and themselves be imprisoned for life. The Bush administration will either be hanged or offered a truth for mercy deal. That means that if they confess, their lives will be spared. Such a fate is not for the neoconservatives. They will be purged from the military and the Pentagon and will summarily be shot. The truth movement may say they want justice, but some are clearly aiming for a bloodbath. So there is every reason to keep a very close eye on conspiracy theorists and the theories they believe in. That's all from here. if you have questions later on, you can contact us via our website or Facebook page, or drop us a good old-fashioned email. And now, questions and answers, where all my answers will be questioned.
Thank you so much, Klaus. That was wonderful. So, to what extent do you think that mental health issues play into this? Because some of the things that you've discussed really sound like delusions, and that is heavily featured in some descriptions of mental illness.
Yeah, Stine and I are very careful not to go out and say that this conspiracy theorist is normal and this one is completely bonkers. It's not up to us to diagnose people with mental illnesses. If they walk around in free in public, well, we have to assume that they're okay, and therefore, if they voice their theories in public, they're fair game. We treat everyone the same, so.
Okay, we're just having some flickering there.
That's mine.
So if you live with someone, or if you're very close to someone who has these fixed beliefs, how do you recommend that people proceed interacting with them?
Family comes first. We have to say that. You don't necessarily. We would not advise someone to sow strife in family. I mean, in most families there are more strife than already. So we don't need that. Nobody needs that extra problems in their families. Just let it go. Let it go.
Okay. And John Tamplin asks, in the U.S., it seems like conspiracy theories have exploded recently to the point that QAnon proponents have actually been elected to Congress. Any suggestions for a larger scale approach to them?
QAnon is a peculiar type of conspiracy theory, because for the first time, as far as we can gather, its leader, or purported leader, Donald Trump, is actually part of the elite. But Trump is named to be the guy who drains the swamp, and he's going to arrest thousands of people, including Hillary Clinton and everyone who is eating babies regularly for lunch. It's not. It's a peculiar American phenomenon that people who believe in QAnon are actually elected. And that is a warning sign, big red flag. Because once conspiracy theorists become politically empowered, you pave the way for transgressions of laws and your beloved Constitution. So you gotta be very careful with electing people who believe in, especially something as extreme as QAnon. Eating babies, come on, seriously, come on.
Yeah, they really have to be prepared just right. So, anyway, well, thank you. I don't seem to have any other questions here. What have your from the chat? But we're happy to take any. What has been your most frustration in all of these things that you've discovered? What's been the most frustrating thing for you?
That it's so difficult to get through to a conspiracy theory. It's really, really hard. They have all the barriers up. Once you, especially once you tell them, or they know in advance who we are, it's difficult to get them to talk to us, because they shut off immediately once they find out that what they're talking about, and they really don't want to. They only want to talk to people who they think they can persuade. They know they're not going to get anywhere with us, with Sten and I. So it's difficult, but we have managed to get through to some.
Tell us about your successes.
Oh man, it's difficult because we usually mostly we contact them online, and they can just walk away from any dialogue, and so we don't really know if we do make an impact on some of them, but whether we've actually converted anybody, we don't know, because they would not come back to us and say, "Oh, you know what? I was a fool. You were right." They have a hard time doing that. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult, but we have to try. We have to try. Our biggest success is perhaps that we've gotten the word or the ears of a lot of school children and high school students, because they are open to argument. You know, they're empty vessels. Whatever you put into them, they just soak up. So we've had some really good lectures in Danish schools and gymnasiums, and also at the Copenhagen University. So,
well, hopefully you can inoculate them against that sort of thinking. That would be ideal. No, right?
No.
That would be ideal. So there's a question from Sanity Now. You note a lot of conspiracy theories that tend to be associated with the right wing. What are prominent ones associated with the left wing?
5G. I would say 5G, because 5G play off early on 4G and 3G and 2G. It plays into the environmental issues, which is traditionally a left-wing issue. So we do find conspiracy theories on the left as well. Mm-hmm. But from an American point of view, it does seem like conspiracy theories tend to lean to the right.
And vaccine denial, does that seem to be more left-wing as well?
Sorry?
Vaccine denial, does that seem to be more left as well?
I don't have any data for it, but I could. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Claus. Do you want to give us, I'll give you a couple more minutes for a shameless plug. Let's go over how to contact you again.
Oh, if you have any questions, just contact us at our website, 911facts.dk. It's the articles are there in both Danish and English. And you can reach us at our Facebook page as well. There's a link on our webpage. And of course, you can email us if you like. We are free to, we are here for you.
And Claus is just one of the most gracious hosts ever. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for joining our live streaming Dragoncon Skeptrack for 2020. We hope that you stay safe and social distance and wear your masks. We will see. We do have one change in our schedule this afternoon. At 2:30, we will be discussing the Dragoncon, making Dragoncon happen virtually this year with Rachel Reeves, who is the co-chair of Dragoncon, Senior Director at Dragoncon, co-chair of Dragoncon. We are delighted that Mark Ditzler will have a chance to speak with her. Thank you for Calico Cove Studios. Thank you to Mark Ditzler, Derek Culanduno. I'm your Assistant Director, Dr. Angie. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
As fun as all this streaming content is, we sincerely cannot wait to see you all in person again next year. Remember to stay healthy and safe until then. Wear a mask when interacting with other people out in the real world. Want more Skeptrack? Get more than 10 years of Skeptics track programming at our video archive, video.skeptrack.org.